Once it reaches 4 bars on the temperature gauge, again, you can rev it up and it returns to idle, no problem, provided, however, it's remained in neutral. As soon as you click it into gear, however, and engage the clutch and put a little bit of load on the motor, then it starts to have extreme difficulties running. The idle RPM drops from 1450 RPMs down to approximately 1100 RPMs. And then if you rev the motor up after that, when it's in that state, the idle will typically drop down to 900 RPMs, and then also typically the motor just dies. This occurs also if, for instance, the neutral second and third gear switch is disconnected, so the ECU thinks it's not in neutral. Exhibits the same situations. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate. Okay, so we got 3 bars on the temperature gauge now. Again, to remain in neutral since I first started it up. Revs up just fine, goes back to 1450 RPM. Everything sounds normal to me. Yeah, there the RPMs dropped a little bit, but now it's back up to 1450. Nothing too unusual. While it's warming up, let me point out a few other things here. I have a fuel pressure gauge hooked up to the fuel line. Here's my quick disconnect. And that's the fuel pump connector. And then it runs over here to the tank that I just have sitting over here against the workbench. Kind of nice to be able to let the bike run with this tank out. Alright, so now we're up to full 4 bars at the normal operating temperature range. Again, it continues to idle, rev up, just fine, turns back to 1450. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and disconnect this switch here. You'll hear the idle RPMs drop to about 1100 RPM. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect this switch, and then you'll hear the idle RPMs drop shortly thereafter down to about 1100 RPM. Now it's actually dropping a little bit below. Now it's almost ready to die. Now I can rev it up, but watch what happens when I try to let it go back to idle. Well, it didn't die that time. There, dies that time. Okay, so I've reconnected that switch. And we'll go ahead and start the bike again. Gotta turn the key on first. Run through his diagnostics. So it doesn't like the idle now. But if I can get it running, let it run for a little bit. Now slowly the idle RPMs will pick back up to 1450. All I've done is just reconnected that neutral second and third gear switch. Grab it back up. Seems pretty normal. Now we'll do the same thing if I, for instance, flick it into gear and rev it up. It's kind of hard to do that and hold the camera at the same time, but trust me, it will do exactly the same thing it just did, just by simply disconnecting the switch. So from this I can only conclude that if the ECU believes that the bike is in any mode, any gear selection position other than neutral, it doesn't like to idle. And just to prove my point, I'll go ahead and disconnect the switch again. You'll hear the idle RPM drop. Fan just came on. But you get my point. Now if I plug it back in before it dies, there, I just plugged it back in. Now you hear the RPM picking back up. Back to 1450 more or less. Go figure. And I should point out that this bike has been into the KTM dealer in San Francisco twice now, whereas we put it on the KTM diagnostic tool, did a complete system analysis and system level reset. All this, and then followed by a 15-minute acclimation idle. According to the KTM diagnostic tool, all sensors in wiring have checked out okay, meaning no errors found. The only problem with that, however, is that that's largely inconclusive. If it found an error and threw an error code, well, then we know for sure that one or more sensors were bad. But the fact that there were no error codes is inconclusive that everything's right, because obviously not everything is right. So we, usual suspects included the manifold pressure sensors, the air box temperature sensor, the absolute air pressure sensor. All of those have checked out okay according to the KTM diagnostic tool. So no problems found. This bike's currently got the stock KTM map because it's got a 2-in-1 exhaust on it. Yet, as I mentioned, we've did a complete system reset and then allowed it to do the 15-minute acclimation idle. I've also tried different ECUs. I had a brand new in a box 990 ECU that we put on the bike, and the bike ran exactly the same way. So it doesn't follow the ECU. So the mystery continues.